Hey, 555ers, Andrew here. I hope your spring is going well. It's been incredibly busy for me this time of year with my main job, but I was able to carve a little bit of time away this evening for a watch review. A watch review that's a long time coming. This is the Nodus Avalon. And in this video, we're going to get in depth with the design of this interesting micro brand dive watch. Some of the things that I love about this watch, some of the things that I've struggled with, and we're going to compare it to mainline Seiko competition as well. So stay tuned for a full review of this very interesting microbrew dive watch. All right, so let's start off a little bit with the brand Nodus. Now, normally in a new brand review, I like to get into the history of the brand, talk about the people behind it. But you know what I'm going to do today is I'm actually going to just give a little hat tip to another watch channel, and that's Take Time with Patrick Marlette. He actually did an on-site interview with the founders of Nodus Watches in LA, and it's a really great casual interview. So I'm just going to include a link to that down in the description below, and I think that you'll find that it's really relatable and really interesting. The guys behind Nodus are just young watch enthusiasts who are collectors who decided to take it to the next level. And the thing that's nice is they brought a lot of their passion and their sensibilities about what makes a good watch to the design and to the execution table when they actually decided to produce watches for themselves. Now, the Avalon, I believe, is their fourth offering, and there's a lot of interesting little phrases and things we can get into. First of all, in case you don't know, you might not, Nodus is a Latin word for knot. I studied Latin for a long time, but it also means difficulty or challenge. And for sure, I think that that applies to a brand like Nodus who's trying to make sports watches and break into a market where we're very saturated in micro brand sports watches. But at the same time, there's definitely room for improvement in this price segment, and there's lots of room for just creative expression as well. I find that Nodus has found a very happy medium with their designs, making basically what I think will be refinements on existing designs and improving them in significant ways. Now, that's especially apropos with the Avalon, because the Avalon, of course, is a watch that is heavily inspired by Seiko watches. It's a cushion case diver with a nice stainless steel case and stainless steel bracelet. Let's just take a look at the specifications. If you haven't looked at my overview video of the Avalon and you just want the basic facts and also a quick comparison with another Nodus watch, the Contrail, I'll just have that in the annotations above. So just check out that video if you want, just a quick overview. It has a 42mm bezel, but the overall cushion case design makes it actually 43.5. I would say that that distinction is significant because it actually wears like a 42mm watch. It also is a very thin watch, coming in at 12.9mm thick, and it's kind of chamfered out on the sides like the Seiko Turtle, coming to a 20mm lug width for this H-link bracelet. It is 192 grams, which is a very manageable weight for stainless steel, and it is 48mm lug-to-lug. So all of this is to say, when you look at it side by side with a Seiko Turtle, that it is very similar in its core design ideas. And that's one of the things that I like about Nodus watches, is that they're actually very forthright about their design inspirations. And next to the Turtle, you can definitely see that there are some very common similarities in the overall case profile and the wider bezel with the insert, and then with the very legible, readable dial. But let's talk a little bit more about the dial, because I think this is one area where you can see clear improvements with the Nodus watch. First of all, you're looking at this dial through a double dome sapphire crystal that has an AR undercoating. So the crystal straight away is definitely nicer than the standard crystal that you would get on a Seiko, which is just their proprietary mineral crystal. This is a matte dial with applied polish indices, and it's very clean with its only 3 lines of text. One thing that I don't like about the dial, I'll just be straight away making this comment, is I don't think the Nodus logo here is as committed as I would like it to be. It's of course bold and the right proportions, but it lacks depth. I think that what would be nice here is a thicker applied Nodus logo. But aside from that, I have no qualms at all with the dial. In fact, I think it's really quite gorgeous. The yellow Avalon text complements the sweeping seconds hand with a dot of yellow in it, and then of course you have applied indices that are very heavily loomed. This is one of the most loom happy watches I've ever owned, and that is really fun. It's really fun to walk from room to room and have slight differences in light, and notice that the loom is dynamically interacting with the environment. It's just cool. It's just really interesting. The combination of matte dial and matte ceramic bezel is another excellent match. One thing I want to note is that the bezel is actually a crosshatch bezel that's bead blasted. This is one design choice that I'm not thrilled of, the inclusion of bead blasting on this case. So you do actually have a total of 3 different types of finishing surfaces on the case: brushed, polished, and then this matte bead blasted finish. And while the bead blasting provides nice texture along with the cross hatching on the bezel, it seems a little bit mismatched or perhaps unfinished, even though it is bead blasted on the back as well as on the crown. Now on the back of the watch we have some interesting specifications. Most importantly, rather than the standard depth rating and source of manufacturing, we have the fact that this is designed and assembled in LA. And this is definitely Nodus leveraging what I think is one of their strongest marketing points. Now you see, this movement is regulated in Los Angeles and the watch is assembled in LA. So that means that it's much more certain that you're going to get a watch that's been vetted properly when it lands on your step, which just means it's going to be most likely not to have any of the sort of problems that frankly even on this channel have manifested themselves. That is a watch suddenly going dead or having some problem, rudimentary problem with the movement. And I put this watch to the test. In fact, what I did with this Nodus, you wouldn't believe it, I actually built a shed with this watch. So yesterday afternoon, in addition to wearing this watch off and on for a variety of formal and casual settings, I actually built a 7x7 shed. It was a vinyl shed with my son Leo, and I wore this watch the whole time. And not only was it comfortable to wear over the course of the entire day, it was also clearly not affected in any negative way by the use of power tools and hammer and other things that I was using in the course of the day. What we're looking at in the Nodus Avalon for a movement is the Miyota 9039. This is a Japanese automatic movement beating at 28,800 beats per hour. It has a 42-hour power reserve, and it is a pretty standard issue Japanese movement. But the thing about it is, Nodus, because they are regulating it in LA, they've gotten it to plus or minus 8 seconds on the wrist, which for me is certainly within the realm of acceptability. And I would say the watch is more like probably 3 seconds fast on the wrist, although I haven't tracked it very carefully. I'm just not an accuracy snob. But for my needs, the watch has always proven to be practically accurate. That is to say that when I check the time, when the watch is running, that it reflects the true time. And so I've been very happy with this watch's movement, even though it's not the most glamorous movement out there. So is this watch a Seiko slayer? I'll be honest, I think it is. It comes with just a nicer level of finishing, more attention to detail in the final quality control, in the assembly, and it also has a more interesting backstory. This is one of the reasons why I like micro brands, is because ultimately what you're doing is not supporting a corporation, you're supporting enthusiasts. Enthusiasts themselves who have work to try to make what is pretty much just a bunch of micro improvements on a very proven formula, namely the cushion case diver. And so while I love my Seiko Turtle and I'm not selling it, this is a watch that, especially in light of having other Seiko watches in the collection, would really be a nice addition for a collector who enjoys the sub $1,000 watch segment and doesn't want to just collect mainstream brands. And so that's where I think the Nodus Avalon has a very nice niche. There are plenty of collectors who enjoy quality watches but are not willing to cross that $1,000 line. And the Nodus Avalon is a very compelling cushion case diver in that price range, especially amongst similar micro brand watches. I particularly love this watch on the wrist. The H-link bracelet seems to be almost like broken in. It's smooth, there are no hang-ups anywhere. The clasp itself is nothing fancy, but I find this watch, especially with its 20mm non-tapered width, to be a very comfortable width as far as the bracelet is concerned. And that is also just a sort of subtle detail that to me puts the Avalon head and shoulders above the Turtle, which I really love, but the bracelet is just way too clunky and way too heavy for the size of the watch. Yes, it's kind of fun to have a heavy duty overbuilt bracelet initially, but your wrist gets tired eventually, and you just know that it isn't necessary to have that thick of a bracelet to do the job. And so ultimately the Avalon was a watch that I was reaching for a lot more than the Turtle in the time that I had the Avalon, because it is a much more comfortable watch to wear. Of course, in this price range, you do have a variety of other watches out there. Watches from Boulder, from Halios, from Zelos. Baltic is another interesting micro brand. And then, of course, you have a lot of accessible, not exactly micro brand, but Swiss watch brands that are also producing dive watches like Hamilton, Doxa, etc. And so you can find a lot of competition in this price segment. But if you love that bold splash of blue, like I did, I found that the interesting color of blue on this watch often spoke to me. It was a cheerful color to see in the morning when I was picking out a watch. I found myself reaching for this watch a lot over the month that I've had this watch. I've really enjoyed it. So for me, the combination of the matte dial and ceramic bezel, the nicely finished case, and the sensible bracelet really meant this was a watch that I could imagine myself really wearing a lot and enjoying. It is really a joy to wear on the wrist, and it is a nice complement to an otherwise sometimes very predictable Swiss dive watch or Japanese dive watch collection coming in at under $1,000. This is a nice, interesting addition to that market, and I like it a lot. It's not perfect. There are some things that I would change, like I would eliminate the bead plasting. The cross hatching on the bezel itself is a little bit unfinished, and I think that maybe a little bit more explanation of the backstory why they specifically named this one the Avalon. If there is a story, I would have liked to have heard more about that. Now, the watch in the configuration that I've showed you is coming in at $625. And I think in some ways you could say that the more direct competition for this watch would be some of Seiko's higher end prospect divers. But the truth is I've owned those dive watches as well, and their quality control isn't really better than what you see on the Turtle. You might have some different materials or a dye shield or some things that maybe would set them apart in some respects, but ultimately it's still just a Seiko at the sub $1,000 price range. I don't know if the quality control will change eventually in the future, but in my opinion, you can pretty reliably expect that the Avalon is going to be finished to a nicer level than a sub $1,000 Seiko diver. So I have to admit I'm somewhat surprised. I feel like the Avalon has slayed the Seiko in my mind in this video. What you've got is just a very unique, interesting take on the Turtle. It seems like it's an improvement that is the result of a lot of micro improvements. And so I can't say really anything that would cause me to not recommend the watch. It is a bit pricey at $625, but overall I think it is really an interesting watch, and I've been really enjoying it. I definitely prefer it out of the two Nodus watches that I've had the pleasure of reviewing. The Contrail is coming up soon enough. If you have any questions or thoughts about that, let me know. And guys, let me know if this is a watch you would check out. I'm surprised. I thought it would just be a sort of derivative cushion case diver, but I've come to see it as really a watch that offers a number of improvements. This is a busy time of year for me, guys, and so I'm hoping to get one video out in a week and another video in a week after that. But the month of May, you can probably expect videos every 1 to 2 weeks from me. But I have a huge amount of stuff planned for the summer. I have a ton of gear on the docket, some really exciting stuff that I think you're going to enjoy. So please do leave me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this review. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the Avalon. Let me know what other micro brand watches you'd like to see reviewed. And of course, please hit that subscribe button so you can get my other watch and gear content that's going to be coming up. Really appreciate you checking out this video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.